Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
Hey everybody, I'm George Affleck.
And it is time for
UnSpun.
Oh, George, I'm going to start with a somber note.
Yeah.
This one literally made me bawl my head off. John McKeachie passed away. My good friend Greg Shannon, who is the producer in the truck for the Canucks, and we've worked together for a bazillion years. We have worked together since VTV days. So Greg texted me that news before it had broken, broadly. And I called him back and we had a chat about, boy, have we lost some greats in the last year. And, Keech, and we lost Jim Robson. And I mean, John McKeachie, just so you know, the reason why it hits me as hard as it does is my very first ever sport broadcast in my life.
As a broadcaster.
The day as a television broadcaster, first time on TV. I'd done radio for 8 years, but I had never done sports on TV. And I got the call at BCTV, so the biggest television station in the province.
Huge. 800,000 viewers at its peak.
Yeah, that's when Tony Parsons was anchoring the 6 o'clock news. This is what I'm talking about. They fired John McKeachie and Bernie Pascal from the sports department. Both had been there for 25 years, and I was thrown into the chair. And both John, who we called Keech, and Bernie phoned me that day. And this is before internet. This is before, they phoned me at the desk and made sure that I knew that I had their full support. And they have been supportive of me my whole career. It wells me up now to think about it. I talked to John McKeachie as recently as earlier this year when he was, when I knew that he was being inducted into the BC Sports Hall of Fame, and I knew that he had just received the phone call to tell him that he was going in as a member of the media. And we had what was going to be a quick phone call. And George, it was almost 2 hours long because that's what it was like to catch up with Keith. And yeah, I love that guy and we will miss him. So
if you grew up here, and when they got fired, especially John McKeachie, you're like, what? Yeah. Why was what? Like, because they were like the sports guys, like you 100%. Yeah. And I think it was a money thing, I think, but you think? I don't know. Yeah. I wasn't there.
I wasn't
back in the days when Tony Parsons was making probably $1 million a year as a local anchor. Those days are long over.
Okay, so I just wanted to get that out there to all of my sports enthusiast friends, and I know even you that makes jokes about sports saying you watched Keach, and so we love him. Okay, let's start federally. Some leaking when it comes to the negotiations for CUSMA or USMCA or NAFTA or whatever the hell we're calling it this week.
Right.
What are we hearing? What are we hearing, George?
Well, these rumors are. I hope, it's kind of enough is enough is basically the rumor, is what the Canadian team are saying to the Americans. Obviously, they've been offered something that's way under to what they, it's almost probably an insult from the Americans to Canada. And so this stuff doesn't get leaked, by itself. Obviously, the Canadians leaked it to the media, to somebody to get it out there that this, they're of course denying it or they haven't spoken to it or whatever. But the fact they said, we can't control if this doesn't go well and we end up with these tariffs on the 19th, we can no longer, control how the premiers will behave, and we've really lost control of the message and of negotiations with you, America, and that is not going to be a good thing for you. Is basically the message, and of course, you've got Doug Ford who's saying, I'll cut off electricity, I'll do this, I'll do that. On one extreme, then you got Saskatchewan saying, hey, let's all just get along. Why don't we just cut a deal? Come on. Right. So you got the two extremes in Canada, and Alberta to a certain degree. Hey, why don't we just join America? It'll be, I think that's the right tack. I think I think that's how we all feel, right? Most of us in Canada are feeling like, come on. First, we talked about this last week. You can't trust this guy anyways. So, at what point do we have to say, that's enough? Goodbye.
It feels like even if we did write something down,
it
doesn't
mean anything.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything until he has a
100.
fever dream and wakes up and goes, well, today it's 100% tariffs on everything. And
Yeah.
when we're talking about the difference between the Ontario Premier versus the Saskatchewan Premier versus the Alberta Premier versus the BC Premier, or
Sorry,
all the way across.
yeah, it was Saskatchewan. Yeah, I'm correct.
It was. Well, because their impact is like 2%, where the impact in Ontario is like 18% or 16%, and the impacts in BC is like 28%. Like, every province has something to be concerned about, but some more deeply wounded than others by these ridiculous tariffs and the cost really that's being passed along to U.S. citizens, which I find to be a narrative that is starting to bubble up when people are talking about the economy as we are, as of right now, 86 days from the midterm elections in the United States, and who knows
and that's who cares? I mean, I frankly think it doesn't make a difference. The Democrats have not been there going, stop with the tariffs. They're not. Barely. A few of the border states with the provinces are saying, please stop the tourism and whatever. But mostly the Democrats have remained silent on this and on Iran.
They've been silent on everything. It feels like they're just holding the line until the midterms to see if they
liked what he's doing.
Maybe.
And they just didn't have the guts to do the Iran war. And they're just like, good, glad it's him, not us, but it should have been done. And with the tariffs, they're like, yeah, we're bankrupt. I mean, if you read all the stories coming out of the States right now, the economic stories and their debt ratio and all these things, they are this is the whole, we've talked about this so many times. The whole point, they don't have a GST, HST in America. They don't have a national sales tax. So they have no revenue source to tap into when they are the cash, like besides income tax. And so this is their dilemma. So they create this tariff, which is basically a consumer tax. It's just fed through the people who own the businesses, which is completely ridiculous. It's just because you can never put in a sales tax in America. You can't do anything in America. That's, people just don't want anything. So by positioning this as a tariff, it's against us. It's not, but the Americans are actually paying it.
Right.
At some point, it's going to damage, obviously, our businesses in Canada significantly, but America needs the money. So if America goes bankrupt, we're screwed because we rely on America. So what do we do? But they're just being dishonest and putting it on us.
We do the incremental things that we can do, and it feels like that's the strategy at the top federally right now. I mean, our jobs numbers versus American jobs numbers that just came out surprisingly high and beating estimates by a long shot, as is our economic trend. Opposite is true in the United States. If you had asked most experts 6 months ago what those two things would look like, nobody could have predicted this, which is we're living in a time where making predictions is spin. And to your point on the negotiation side of thing is any discussions that something can be resolved before the 19th of August is spin. And I think that the messaging from the Canadian government and why they leaked what they did is to say, you know what, we're not spinning this because we're dealing with unserious people when it comes, they don't want to make a deal. I mean, look at the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Canada. He calls it a term of endearment in saying that we're the 51st state. It's not a term of endearment. It's an affront. It's ridiculous. And now there's like a petition. Didn't somebody in Calgary
100,000 signatures?
Yeah. A petition to what did they call it? Persona non grata, right? To make him just get him removed from his Hoekstra from his position as ambassador to Canada because he is so.
It's a big deal to get rid of an ambassador. The politics of that are bigger than anything else. It's the most insulting thing you can do, it would be high risk to do that, and really he's just parroting what his boss is saying, and he just makes us, it just galvanizes us even more. So he's not going anywhere. He's delegated that position by America. If we're kicking him out, which we can do, we are basically kicking America out of Canada, and that's just not going to happen.
We got to talk about the want to put U.S. booze back on the shelves being so central to this as well. That, to me, it's so easily fed to the American public that Canadians are not putting our booze on the shelf. And then it's like, now it's a strategy. Oh, we'll put the booze back on the shelf. Canadians are not buying that booze.
I know, that's what I think is. Okay, I think that'll be if they end up with coming, and that's one of the deals that's going to make America happy. There's no way until he's gone. Canada is done with America as far as anything that we can do.
Yeah.
That we can visibly see. I mean, we've seen some stories recently about some of the grocery stores putting mislabeling things, but saying Canadian made or whatever, and they're not, which is not cool. But I think generally, if you ask most, as much as we can when we're out shopping, we don't buy American because that's our only way. It's our, at the pump, at wherever we can to try and impact America, and it's working, obviously.
It is, and that's taking the spin out of it is the pushback is actually working. Where people are like, we don't really care if you don't come here. Yeah, you do. You do. You actually do. You're losing billions of dollars, not just millions of dollars, because we're going years into it, and people are going everywhere else. And there are big contracts being canceled. There are big, moves to shift away from what was our friendliest trade partner and neighbor. Now, I saw Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, this morning holding a press conference about data centers when they're a wholly unpopular thing, and where you put them and why, and how much energy they use and how much noise they make, and how environmentally unfriendly they are. He was like playing whack-a-mole with that, but he dropped Donald Trump's name about 15 times this morning. I got to say, because he was like, we need data centers in Canada because we don't want our data all down in the US under the control of Donald Trump or Trump-like. Because once Donald Trump is out of office, somebody like him is going to, because there's a huge swath of America that agrees with them. So, we're not just dealing with one person here.
And Doug Ford is the next leader of the Conservatives, so federal Conservatives. So
right.
He's playing that game. How do I separate myself from the Liberals federally? This is all about positioning for Doug Ford, but it's also quite fun to watch.
It's really something to watch. We'll see how that. But you were telling me in our pre-show meeting, as we set up for this sitcast on sitcommedia.ca, we always put our heads together and write on our very high maintenance notes on a post-it note. But we were talking about something I didn't realize is that there are lots of Americans who actually store their data in Canada. To explain.
Yeah, since 9/11, the Americans have had the ability to go in and look at any corporate documents, or they have access to information of corporations in America like no other time in America. And Canada didn't go that route in 2000. We went a little further after 9/11, but not to the extreme that America did. And so a lot of data centers in Canada, which are owned quite often by Americans like Amazon or whoever, but they're Canadian-based actual servers that you have to, Americans can't come in and access them. They're not allowed to come across our border and go into, even though it's maybe an American-owned company. The actual machinery, even when you talk about the cloud, like there's the nonprofits, for example, in Canada, quite a lot of them aren't allowed to host their websites in America. They have to be hosted in Canada. So there's a whole industry for Canadian-only servers that are controlled within Canada. And Amazon has its own little brand, and there's other brands that control. Don't ask me how it works technically, but it is built in a way that it's within Canada and doesn't go beyond the border, so that's protected.
Thing.
The actual machines are based in Canada.
See, that's Curve Communications at work there, ladies and gentlemen. That's where that's the day job. Okay, let's bring back things to British Columbia, and obviously state of emergency declared. Wildfires, 51 of the wildfires in BC have evacuation orders right now, which is unbelievable. Devastation in Summerland, the devastation in Boston Bar and Clinton, and all the way up toward 100 Mile and north of Vernon and on the west Lake Okanagan, and I mean, it's just it's mind bending.
Yeah, my good friend Robin is, they have a place in Summerland. Yeah, it's Summerland. It's Summerland, by the way, everybody, not Summerland. And it's Abbotsford, not Abbotsford. Anyways, but it's Summerland.
Did I say Summerland?
No, no,
No, I
you said
said
it right.
Summerland.
But
Okay.
I noticed all the newscasts are all saying Summerland. I'm like, it's not
No,
Summerland. It's Summerland.
It's Peachland,
That's not
Summerland,
Peachland, Summerland,
Abbotsford,
Abbotsford, please,
Abbotsford.
for a
Yeah.
Valley boy. Now suddenly
New
it's
Westminster.
Abbotsford.
New
New
Westminster.
Westminster. That's right.
We can keep going.
Anyway,
Low
so
heat.
you know, these friends, she was over on the weekend
Yeah.
here, and we were, you know, literally looking at the maps because we're trying to figure out how close the fire was getting to her house. At that point, it was heading towards her place, but as far as we could tell, it went the other way. You know, she's by the village, and the village didn't get hit. And you know, my friend's mom is in the care home there, and they had to get evacuated. And they had to take this 4-hour route to get to Penticton. It was like they had to go all the way around Hell's Half Acre to get to where they had to go. That would have usually taken half an hour. It took 4 hours. All these seniors, with a lot of them with, you know,
Serious cognitive
serious
issues.
either health issues, like, or mental, like they, yeah, Alzheimer's,
Cognitive,
all
yeah.
sorts of crazy, like serious,
Yeah.
like how did they actually pull that off in a few hours? It's amazing. But
It
it's
is
like,
truly.
but there is this, it's a weird, you know, when you talk to somebody who's literally in that moment, and she was very, you know, she was thinking, what do you do? And her kids were up at the house, and they got out, and she said, and they were like, they talk about get anything that's close to the house and throw it off to as far away from the house, any furniture, get it as far away from the house as possible. The things you start thinking about, like in this situation, and a lot of people in the Okanagan have a mindset of fire is always possible, and
Oh, yeah, you
things
gotta
like
go big.
shrubbery around your house you don't do,
Okay.
and
Oh, yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting for us who live in the city, who, you know, unless except Stanley Park, generally we don't have to deal with, except for the smoke. We're not threatened by
Fire
this
ready.
on a daily
Yeah.
basis, but
Yeah, we
it's
have on our little teeny tiny cabin in the interior, we have the sprinkler systems that sits in two. It's a very small cabin, but you've
mhm,
been there,
yeah,
on the roof. That there's a wonderful group of volunteer firefighters that live up there all the time, and they know which houses have that. And as soon as fire is threatening, they plug pumps into the lake and put them on each of these houses, and it's like they're like, please put these on your houses.
amazing.
So you know, ways of just
I
even
was going to ask where
saving.
the water, so the water comes straight from the lake. So how so you
Water comes
connect
straight
it,
from the
and then
lake.
it's all, oh wow,
Pumps, they do like a fire hose size hose
yeah.
into the lake that goes through a massive pump, portable pump, looks like a big generator, and then you attach household garden hoses to that. And
Because I've been there, I would have never thought you'd have that kind of infrastructure in that little area.
it's literally in because there's no fire hall up where we are.
Yeah.
We're off the grid, and there are two large trailers that have like 911 written on the side of it, and that's where
Wow.
all of the fire stuff is.
Organized.
And we all get fire training. Yeah, we've got a couple of actual
Hmm.
firefighters who train all of us how to put on the gear, how to be, you know, fire ready in terms of having a go bag, you know, have some medication, you know, some pet food, you know, good shoes, because you don't want to be running around in flip flops. We've seen the footage of how
Yeah.
devastating it can be so quickly. And we were up there during the heat dome in 2021. I watched Lytton burn to the ground from the connector coming over the hill. It was just like, you don't
Yeah.
understand what your brain does when you see an emergency, a devastation of that level. Like, it just doesn't compute. Like, in my mind, I thought this can't be real, even though it was right before my eyes.
Obviously the issue that always comes up, and you know, I know this from filling in as host at CKNW. How could we have stopped it? What could we do differently? And obviously water bombers. And you were telling me before
Right.
the show about water bombers, which I find like that 10 years ago approximately they canceled the whole program, saying these aren't needed anymore. And now you said there's a lobby to get funding from Alberta.
It is. Yeah, it's starting up because it was Bombardier, and now it's de Havilland, I believe, out of Calgary. And the bombers that you see, like, and please, like, shout out to the pilots, because if you've ever watched the video of a pilot going to skim a lake so that they could fill it with tons and tons of water to then race towards a fire and drop that water and then go and do it again and then go and do it again. And I've watched it up at at the cabin,
Mm-hmm.
was told, when you see a series of planes coming in, get off the water because they need to come through, and then you time how long between the scoops are, and that gives you an idea of how far away the fire is. Like it's something else to watch this
Yeah.
happen. So those planes, both the big bellied ones that are in huge high demand globally right now, as
Mm-hmm.
well as the small sort of Piper ones that are more of a rapid response, go get to the little fires and try and
Yeah.
get them before they get too big. So the people who build those build them all by hand. They're about $80 million a plane. I know, big price tag, but because there isn't, you know, enough infrastructure to build more of them, and they're basically saying this company out of Calgary, I believe, is saying to the federal government, like, put in an order, give us the money so we can expand, so that we can build more of these planes, because every year is the hottest year on record now. Every year the wildfires are worse. Look at
Yeah.
France, look at Spain, look at Italy, look at like
I know
Sicily is
Evelyn's in
crazy
England. It's 35 degrees this weekend again, and
again.
she's like, it's so hot, and they don't have air conditioning or anything like that. I
Oh
mean,
my
they're
God.
55 days of no rain. You look at there's some of the in London, some of the main little beautiful little pondy, lakey things in around Buckingham, like half empty. It's crazy. It's
It is
crazy.
crazy.
I mean, Al Gore predicted it in 2000
I
and
mean, yeah, I was just going
whatever
to say,
too.
who could have thought that this was going to be
Mm.
a thing? And people think, oh, it's just a bad year. Guess what? This isn't the new normal. This is just the beginning of what will be worse.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
the
we have
scientists are saying. So,
countries are all
yeah,
given up on the whole climate change thing now, so
it's
including the
wild.
biggest one south of us. So, and meanwhile, if you go to China, though, I was speaking to a friend who just came back from China, and he said half the cars on the road now are electric. Like within 10 years, they've switched them over. It's crazy.
I was in Chengdu 1 year ago today, and I remember telling you, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to expect. I'm going to China. Like, I can't believe I'm going to China. It's going to be pollution and chaos, and I'm going to feel unnerved, and maybe be a journalist snatched off the streets, like all of the things
Yeah.
that you know,
Well, that
the
that could.
boogeyman things in your head. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah." And then I got to Chengdu, and it was 100% electrified. This is a new city.
Yeah.
Most of the city is new. The technology is unbelievable. The transit, you can eat off the floor,
Hmm.
and everything is electric. I did not see one gas station, never mind one gas powered combustion vehicle in
Mm.
the 16 days I was there. Like it, we're having our lunch eaten on
Yeah.
going green, and yeah, it looked like Tuscany. It was clear and clean and crisp, and
This is why Trump wants a totalitarian state in the U.S.
right.
He
So we
wants
can do it.
complete
It's
control. So
wild.
that's the benefits of also with the 5-year plans in China. They have these 5-year plans, and they're very, very. I think we talked about this, but it's like they are built so that it's required that the every city, and there's a competition. The mayors all across the country are meant to follow these 5-year plans and to compete for the all the work that's going to come, and
Yeah.
and the better you do, the likelier you are to raise up the because the mayors are appointed in China, and the further you go up the communist ladder. So there are, and
And
if you fail, you disappear.
they invest in business in a way that they throw money at the people that are having success at what they're doing in business. And once it gets to the point where it serves the greater good, the government owns it. Right.
Mm.
That's the thing. It's like if they need to put a highway all the way through Shaughnessy and down through Richmond and then all the way through Ladner, they're not asking,
Yeah.
right? They're just
Well,
building
that's
the
kind of what
highway.
we're doing with
Like that's
pipelines
the
around
thing.
Canada. So
Oh my
we have a
goodness.
process for that. We'll see how it
We
goes, but
yeah,
we
we
have
do.
started that process.
And well, before we move from wildfires, I do want to just do a shout out to the Mexican firefighters who have come to help us here in British Columbia, and thank you,
Mm.
Mexico, for joining us again here. Um, and we could get into more on BC and the lands that are being moved. Like there's a lot of controversy and heat around Premier David Eby giving back parcels of land, is how he's putting it, to a number of First Nations across BC. It's got a big uproar, the fear around that. UNDRIP, Truth and
Yes, well,
Reconciliation.
Well, negotiations, I mean, we still have to find out what's going on and what the deal is. But generally, if you want, we have unceded territories in BC. A lot of them, almost all of them. Well, we got a few that were negotiated, Tawasin and
Yeah.
Ishka. But, in order to get those deals done so we can get a contract signed, which we don't have, like mostly across
Most
Canada,
provinces do. Yeah.
they have, so that's why they don't have as many challenges as we have here in BC.
Yeah.
So, that always requires giving up land. That's how it works. That's what they want. And you can see examples of prosperity right now happening in these First Nations that have negotiated deals, where they embrace it and prosper. And we like that, right? Prosperity is good, for
Yeah.
everyone if you
But
share
the
the wealth
fear
and all
mongering
that
out
crazy
there, George.
socialist stuff.
Oh
I know.
my.
Well, I mean, we don't want to give away their farm, but
No,
so deals, and obviously the way it present. I mean, the questions are the process and what's happening, and it came as a surprise, and all these things like, okay, what is going on? So that's never good.
that becomes a wedge issue. That becomes something
Yeah.
that can fire up a
Yep.
base pretty hard. But the new polling, actually on Sitka Media, I saw the poll for the first time, that has David Eby and the NDP now leading the BC Conservatives by 6 points.
Yeah. Wow. That is, it's one poll, of course, but it's a fairly good poll as far as the company that did it.
Yeah, it's
And
Yorkville polling, right?
yeah,
Yorkville
Yorkville
Strategies.
fairly, yeah,
Yeah.
the team behind it are very reputable. I think it's obviously a statement about Carrie Lynn Finley's approach to what she's doing, and it's her choice. She's the leader. She's cleaning house and doing her own thing, and meeting with Dallas Brody to bring her back into the fold, and who's a very controversial MLA.
To say the least.
And
Controversial.
so until she's finished that and starts whatever process and gets into the legislature as a MLA, which I would imagine is her next thing, seems to be having a challenge getting somebody to step down for her. Then we'll be able to see what her real leadership is in the legislature. But at this point, it's not working on the polling side for her. But we've got 2 years of election. However, now that they have a leader, Eby can easily just call a snap election if he wants. If he sees that this is an opportunity, that's a very possible thing that he could do. Why give her time to build a foundation of what he clearly would oppose of our province moving forward? So, I'm sure the NDP are watching those polls closely. It certainly saved Eby for now.
Right.
A few weeks ago we were talking about him not surviving, and now Carrie Lynn Finley's resuscitated his political career.
It's
Thanks,
interesting.
thanks, opposition.
Before we go, we've only got like 90 seconds here. So
Oh my
this is
gosh.
one that I just drop in your lap here. There's a plebiscite that was just
Yeah.
announced by the city of Vancouver. And Coles notes it. It's going to be on the ballot this
So there's an
October.
emergency council meeting to decide tomorrow, but they have a
Right.
majority, so it'll pass.
But to make what will be the old St. Paul's Hospital into a place for those suffering mental health struggles and addictions,
Right.
to have beds. I don't know.
Well, it's certainly to ask. I mean, it's non-binding plebiscite.
Right, plebiscite.
So it's basically trying to get the mood of the city through an official process, not a poll, an actual election campaign on the back of it. If you turn the ballot over, there's a whole bunch of questions on there.
Yeah.
Big ballot, lots of questions, and this will be part of that ballot. And it's a good wedge issue. I don't think the other parties understand the mood of the city.
Right.
If you look at ABC has over $1 million, way over $1 million already collected. It's already public. They have so much money. The other parties do not have that kind of money, so they have been polling. They know all the data for sure, and they know where the mood is in the city right now, and they're diving into that, including, speaking of diving, your pool issue, which they are 100% behind because they've obviously done the polling on that, along with obviously your massive support. That it's an issue that they are on the right side of. So these are the things that win elections. And I saw Mo Amir's latest column that he wrote for Sitka, talks about, and his latest podcast is about this. And he talks about, same thing that I'm talking about. How do you win this election? And ABC, there's just, to beat them at this point would require all the left side to get behind Pete Fry.
Amalgamate.
Yeah.
Right. They'd have to get behind one and run against them. I didn't even mention the pool.
I know. I did it for you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Freekitspool.com.
Freekitspool.com. And I will shout out to all of the unbelievable support that I receive from people everywhere I go. Everybody's mentioning it to me, young, old, local, from out of town. I'm seeing out of town media outlets clipping people in front of the pool, and they're all saying the same thing. It's just it's wild. So one way or another, this will be on the ballot in October, because we are going to make change unless change comes before then. If you want to follow along, my social media is very pool heavy, but George is a great follow. You follow George on Twitter at George __ Affleck, at George _ Affleck. Everywhere else, he's just George Affleck. I tag him in everything. He must be sick of me. Just George Affleck. And I'm at Jody Vance, Jody with a Y, everywhere. All over social medias of platforms of all kinds. And you find us here on sitcomedia.ca every Thursday. Just go to the Sitcasts little tab up on the corner of the website. Or go to the YouTube channel and like and subscribe, because then you can watch us do this craziness every single week.
Craziness. Bye-bye. See ya.
See ya.